Hello everyone, Houdini the Masochist here, and I am longing for yet another challenge. I just can't seem to stop. Today, we'll be taking on the vanilla version of Explorers of Sky, with a fun little twist. As a kid, I dreamt about picking any starter I wanted. Unfortunately, that wasn't a possibility back then. But things are different now, because of Sky Temple. This amazing program lets you edit the whole friggin' game, starters included. So, let's have some fun. You probably saw it in the thumbnail already. I really want to complete this game with the two weakest fish there are. We'll be playing as Feebas, the Feebas, and our partner Flops, the Magikarp. And together, they will flop and flail their way to glory. Now, I will be skipping most of the story as you guys are probably already familiar with it. If not, hey, you can give my other playthrough a watch. There, I cranked up the difficulty to 11 with difficult rules, modified Pokémon and more than 110 new Pokémon. Speaking of rules, I will be implementing some in this challenge as well. Rule 1. Obviously, I can only use Feebas and Flops. Rule 2. I cannot bring combat related items to a dungeon. I can use, however, any item I find in the dungeon itself. And lastly, Rule 3. I will not use any Wonder Mails. Not the most insane rules, but come on. These fish only know Splash up to level 15. Cut me some slack. So, Feebas lies unconscious on the beach. Poor guy is just a meter away from the water. We see Flops being a little cowardly, but that'll change definitely. He then makes his way up to the beach and stumbles on Feebas. And guess what? He's alive while being out of the water. Quite the accomplishment, because he's a fish and all. So yeah, relic fragments get stolen by these goons, and so Feebas and Flops embark on their very first adventure together. Okay, first the stats of Flops. His stats are certainly not the best. His attack is atrocious, while his other stats are medium at best. His HP is decent. For reference, here are the beginner stats of a Riolu at level 5. Unfortunately, his level up stats are abysmal, as you will soon see. His ability is Swift Swim, which doubles his move count in the rain, which is actually quite strong. But for that to happen, it has to be raining, which doesn't happen a lot, unfortunately. And for lovely Feebas, I was actually quite surprised. He has a solid amount of HP and amazing beginner stats. Actually, even a bit better than a regular starter. He also has a Swift Swim, so when it rains, they'll be fast together. Feebas' level up stats are way better than Flops, but still worse than a regular starter. As both are water types, we can also cross water, which is interesting. But I encountered a problem whenever I defeated the first enemy I saw. In this game, the amount of XP you get depends on different factors. A Pokémon has its base amount of experience it yields. When you only use regular attacks or items, you just get that basic amount. By using at least one move directly on it, you'll receive 50% more experience. And when using a link move, you get 100% experience. I only have my regular attacks, so the XP I'll be getting will be the lowest amount possible. Little fun fact, Splash can deal damage in this game. It randomly moves the user to one tile in its proximity. Should it be on the foe, it will deal a whopping 5 damage. Even our regular attacks are better, so I'll stick to that. Right now I'm just testing the waters a bit, seeing what Feebas and Flops can do. Here Flops already gets a level up. And yeah, just +1 in special defense. This is gonna be rough. So right now only got one space inventory, so I chose the blast seed over all other items. Especially in the early game, it's really overpowered. Here we have another Shallows. Unlike the main games, they are notorious for their very low hit points, so they are no problem at all. And here Feebas levels up as well, a clean 2 HP raise and 1 stats increase in all the other stats. Again, not the best, but leagues better than flops. Now for the Koffing and Zubat fight. Was a bit stressed out at the beginning, but you'll see it'll be just fine. Feebas ate the blast seed, which incinerates the Zubat. With Zubat gone, both Feebas and Flops could focus their strength on Koffing, which actually tried to put up a fight. One tackle even did 12 damage, which was a bit scary, but after some strong fin slapping, they managed to finish the job. These goons never stood a chance. We then robbed them instead and decided to form an exploration team. The world was trembling, and thus Team Flail-Ups was formed. Loudred rudely waked us up, and we then had to make our way to Drenched Bluff to get Spoink's Pearl back. I got a defense scarf and lime bow from the guildmaster. The lime bow kinda sucks, but the scarf could really come in handy. Here we find the other form of Shallows, as weak as the blue one, so no problem at all. Right now, Feebas' stats are actually still above average, which makes the enemy attacks rather weak. Spoiler alert, this will change real soon. So for now, everything actually is quite fine. Even a critical hit just deals 1 damage, which even feels a bit weird, but oh well. And then here we have it. Surprisingly, the biggest threat of Drenched Bluff was Chingling, with its rep attack dealing multiple fixed amounts of damage. For the very early game, rep is actually quite decent. It disables any attacks or movement and hits you a couple of times with 6s. As you can see, it's almost killing Feebas here. So Flops had to step in. Of course, he couldn't handle it as well, so had to retreat for a second. Now, being able to cross water is here a real advantage, and I'm certain this will come in handy in the future as well. So yeah, went into battle a bit too soon. And this Chingling is actually owning me. But luckily, Flops finishes the job. Suddenly came across a softcore monster house here. So that was the biggest challenge of Drenched Bluff, I guess. But of course, Feebas and Flops are handling it very professionally. And Flops even gains another level because of it, a whopping 1 point in defense. Another Chingling here. This time both fishes could fight against it, which actually matters quite a lot, as you can see here. Without any other problems, we managed to retrieve the pearl. As a reward, we received a protein, iron and calcium. Probably one of the best rewards in the entire game. It was then time for the third dungeon. Drowzee the Outlaw was the target, but Feebas and Flops would soon realize that he was way off. First thing first, time to ingest some minerals. I gave calcium to Feebas for a reason I'll explain later. Flops received the much needed iron, raising his defense. The protein, which raises attack, went to Feebas, as he was the main attacker. We then see the first enemy of Mount Bristle, and it's a rather strong one. Spinnerack is perhaps the least tanky, but its poison stings hits hard and can poison, which can be deadly. It can also use String Shot, which slows down, which in certain scenarios is game over. Luckily, Flops could help in this case, so we were fine. For now. Geodude isn't much of a threat, but when it uses Defense Curl, and only Feebas would be able to attack, fights could take quite a while. With some tackles, he could whittle us down quite a bit. Here we see another Spinnerack in action, and yeah, the first death. Of course by a critical hit. You'll better get used to this. And here we have one of the two biggest threats of the dungeon, Doduo. So, it immediately uses Growl, which cuts down my low attack even more. I thought it was smart by retreating until I found a Wonder Tile, and then the other big threat of the dungeon stood right in front of Feebas, and somehow Flops even dies more quickly than Feebas. This was literally one of the worst scenarios. Here we have a Machop, not tanky, and apparently low attack in this game as well. I was really surprised how weak it was. He could use Leer, so if there wouldn't be a Wonder Tile in proximity, things could get dicey. See that quick attack? So freaking brutal, man. In this fight I tried to change Flop's tactics, but at its level nothing really useful was available. I wanted him to get out of here, but alas. I actually misplayed here and forgot to use the orb I found, which could have saved us, but oh well. Another try, and guess what? A murderous Starly is standing next to us, while there's also a Spinnerack who probably wants to eat us. First attack and I miss of course, and then the Spinnerack slows us both down. Starly went down though. Can we do this? Clutch Poison Sting miss, and because we were slowed down it could attack again, and game over once again. Back again, trying to get a gummy, and immediately two Starly in the proximity. Nothing could go wrong, right? I do find some Geopebbles who deal a fixed 10 amount of damage, which is actually quite nice for the early game. Both Feebas and Flops fighting for their lives here, throwing some stones and all. But our placement was horrible, and so Flops died once again. And hey, guess what guys? 3 times in a row that we started the dungeon with 2 enemies in the room. Perhaps this time we'll succeed. The Growl is terrible already. You've got to respect these fish. They just keep going and keep trying. A fat back crit, they keep going. Dealing almost no damage, but still. But we actually managed to defeat the Starly. 1 left to go, and yeah, another back crit. Oh, of course. Time to start a tradition, guys. Always we're starting a dungeon with 2 enemies in the room. Let's freaking go. I already was getting really frustrated, and boy, this was just the beginning of it all. My odds were very low, so I actually tried to escape from them. And I actually get rewarded by a 3rd enemy. For some reason the Machop is dealing little damage, but the Starly backs him up and it manages to end me once again. After Beach Cave and Drenched Bluff, I actually began to underestimate this challenge. Sure, fights took way longer than normal, but I didn't really struggle at all. Until I got to this place, where both Starly and Doduo punched Feebas and Flops in the mouth, and those birds don't even have arms. Both of these fiends have quick attack, basically a stronger tackle that can hit us from a tile away. It even works when an enemy is standing in front of them. To top it all off, both their quick attacks are stab boosted, dealing quite a lot of damage. I quickly learned humility, as I died a lot. Along learning my place, I also learned some other stuff. My attacking power was atrocious, and Flops could barely take 2 hits. And when he faints, the entire mission fails. Feebas was quite a bit stronger, but still, only using regular attacks was way too ineffective. Battling a Pokémon one-on-one or with the help of Flops mostly turned out fine, but 2 Pokémon at the same time and 9 out of 10 times I would lose. But that's without taking items into account. I learned pretty quickly that even the most basic of items, like Geopebbles, were a godsend. Oran berries could save our lives, sleep and stun seeds worked wonders, and good orbs could turn a battle to my favor really quickly. Unfortunately, these items weren't abundant, and even when I had some, I had to keep holding on to them in order to get a fighting chance against Drowzee. I didn't even face him after all these deaths, so I had no idea what was possible. Once again, I got myself into quite the predicament, but in this case you'll see how some meager pebbles saved the butts of Feebas and Flops. At this point I was just thinking to give up, but hey, couldn't do anything else but try. Boom, 2 Starlies down in one sitting. At least this was possible. Only at this time I really began to notice the impact of items. With every item I contemplated whether it was useful against a Drowzee or not. Orbs cannot be used in a boss battle, and sleep seeds were useless because he had insomnia. I didn't want to risk a defeat again, so I just chucked the sleep seed at the Starly. Never defeated a Starly this smoothly before. I guess nobody ever said that, ever. Here we encounter the first Nidorino. They were annoying as well, but actually weaker than they look. Nidorina is even weaker, and their growl is still annoying. By now, I actually got a power band from a mission. My attacks hit quite a bit more, and I was actually quite hyped after having fainted like 15 times in a row. Until of course I got weakened enough from previous enemies, so even a Geodude could defeat me. And of course, I lost the power band. Here we have another little Spinnerack, normally not a problem. Would be a shame though if more enemies would come. Perhaps we would have been fine if we weren't slowed down, as we had 2 orange berries. Of course it growls, my attack is now useless, and its attacks are strong as ever. At this moment I thought I was fine because I had 2 orange berries, but I was slowed down. They were just tearing through me. And now I was officially done with this crap. I had to return to the drawing board. I decided to reach 2 goals. Get a power band for both Feebas and Flops, and IQ trading. For those who don't know, IQ is actually really important if one wants to get stronger in this game. Each Pokémon has a certain IQ group. There are 10 in total. Feebas belongs to group H, Flops to group C. For Feebas, I decided to just go for Brick Tough, which boosts his HP by a flat 10 points. Really noticeable in the early game. Flops needed more work. The IQ skills I wanted were Brick Tough, Power Picture, which gives a 50% boost to thrown items, no pebbles unfortunately, Non-Sleeper, Concentrator, Practice Swinger, which raises his attack and special attack for 1 turn when I miss an attack, and Aggressor, which raises his attack by 1 stage, but also lowers his defense by 1 stage. He needed 220 IQ points for that, so that's quite a lot of gummies. Now, I wanted to wait with the gummy grind until I had access to the Spinda cafe. Consuming gummies there gives you at least a stat increase of 1 in a random stats, except HP. Sometimes you could even get a stat raise in all stats, but I couldn't unlock that yet, so I just had to eat gummies in the dungeon. Do note that I still gained stat points by this, quite a lot in fact. It's just a little less frequent than Spinda's Cafe. So, I completed mission after mission and shoved dozens of gummies in both Feebas and Flops' mouth. This was my game time before the grind, 3 hours and 25 minutes. And this is my game time right now, 16 hours and 50 minutes. Yeah, it took me 13 freaking hours. It was long and arduous, but the results were insane. Look at this. Flop's attack is almost 3 times as strong now. His special attack remains useless. His defense almost doubled and his special defense almost tripled. And because of Brick Tough, he also got 10 more HP now. This actually made me feel a bit conflicted. Just looking at this video could make one think that gummies are truly overpowered. And well, without them, you just are a lot weaker. But they are a core mechanic of the game, so I have allowed them. I also grinded 13 hours for this difference. So not at all could you do this within an hour or so. Feebas' stats also got quite the boost, but way less than Flops, as he needed not that many gummies to begin with. He also gained the 10 HP boost from Brick Tough, as well as some needed buffs in all his other stats. This in combination with the power bands had to make a difference, right? Things were finally looking up. Normally, Feebas hit in between 12 and 15 with a power band before the grind. Now, he hit it in between 17 and 20. And best of all, because of all the buffs, Flops even managed to overtake him in the damage department. We managed to defeat enemies more quickly, while we were also way more bulky. Even fighting 2 enemies while being poisoned was not a problem anymore. Alright, after 13 hours of grinding, it's finally time for the Drowzee battle. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I will cheese the hell out of this guy. I don't even care. Here's the plan. I will lure him south, stun him, and go my merry way to the most northwestern corner. And then I'll barrage him with stones and sticks. He doesn't even deserve to get a hit from our mighty fins. And he's down. I actually did not know it would go this quickly, but it did. Feebas and Flops overcame their biggest hurdle yet. And with that, I will end this episode. Something a bit different, but I hope you guys liked this style of video. Feebas and Flop's adventure is not over yet. I will see you guys in the next part. Goodbye everyone.